Item number 2, which is the legal services for bond counsel. Is there a motion to authorize the chancellor to negotiate and execute a contract award with Andrews Kurth LLP for system-wide bond counsel services to be used on an as-needed basis?
I'll move the item, Madam Chair, and I just have some comments once it's second.
A second.
Is there a second? Okay. Discussion. Trustee Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chancellor, at the Committee of the Whole, I think I confused some folks because I asked the question, how much were we likely to pay bond counsel? And I thought they would understand I was asking the underlying question about what were we looking at refinancing over the course of this 3 to 5 year contract. In this conversation, I have not had any in-depth background. I'm new, so I accept that. But the possible conversation about going out to the voters for approval of somewhere between $300 to $500 million in bond. And I thought somebody would have given me the answer. I started getting told that bond counsel was a normal operating procedure, which that's fine. I understand that. But I was trying to get to what the potential cost was. And the only reason why I pulled the item is because I went out and tried to get the information myself, and I shared it by way of a written notation. But in the future, I'm not really asking any trick questions. Mm-hmm. The reason why we just heard former Chairman Schechter give us an elucidation of what occurred last year relative to the finances of the institution. And for me, everything ties back to the budget and what we're spending and what we're likely to spend. And I'm also trying to figure out, so everybody knows, so it's not a secret. Unless y'all have already structured a bond, I'm trying to make sure I can keep up and figure out whether or not we can do a bond, and we can do a bond without raising taxes. And if we have to consider tax increase, I don't want to be surprised. I want to be ahead of the curve, and I want to figure it now. That's why I asked the 2 questions I did. How much, and do we have some kind of schedule that we're looking at refinancing and the underlying costs associated? I don't have an issue on the bond counsel contract, and so I'm ready to vote for it. But I just want to make sure when I ask questions that I don't have to go spend my time. I'm like you, Richard. I don't want to be the only unpaid person in the room and everybody else is getting paid when I could get the information from here. So thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll close the discussion unless there's more, and let's go ahead and vote on the item.
Thank you, Trustee Robinson. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I'm totally confused by what Trustee Robinson handed out, because I could swear at the Committee of the Whole meeting we discussed the cost of bond counsel and we were given these exact figures. Were we not, Dr. Tyler?
I believe that's correct. I don't have it in front of me.
I recall Mr. DeFalco standing up and saying it'll cost 1 basis point per $100, which is $1 per $1,000.
1 to 1.5, just depending on the size.
1 to 1.5, depending on the
issuance. I think we've averaged, actually, over the last 5 years, we've averaged about 1.65, if I recall Brian Malone's exact numbers from yesterday.
And just to be clear, this comes as this is part of the bond pack. In other words, when we seek a bond, built into the bond is the cost of doing bond counsel.
The cost of issuance, which includes all of the counsels, the underwriters' counsel, the bond counsel, and the actual makers of the financing of the bond, are all included as part of that measure.
And this is the way it's done in everywhere around the United States?
It's done with every bond issuance by any municipal agency in the United States. That's correct.
And so the bond counsel only gets paid if there's a bond issued.
That's correct.
So, and you got to have counsel to issue a bond.
That is very correct.
So I don't even understand. I mean, the numbers were given to us last week. I was totally confused when I saw this about why we were spending a second on it.
I had my hand.
Thank you, Trustee Schechter.
Thank
Trustee
you.
Oliver.
We don't need to belabor the point. I think Trustee Robinson has agreed to support the item that he pulled, and so.
No, we're gonna tarry a while because we're gonna get some stuff straight. Yeah. And I don't mean to interrupt you. When you finish, I'll make my point.
I want to make some. Hold on. Let's let Trustee Oliver finish. Sandy, you will follow, and then we will go back to Trustee Robinson.
Again, I mean, again, and now I'll be quiet so that way I don't add to the tarrying of stuff. But I think he agreed to go ahead and support the thing. I think he just wanted some information, and I don't have, Richard, what you have in front of you now. about any kind of things that the figures. I mean, I didn't get that. I don't know if you did pass it out, Trustee Robinson. I don't have a copy of that.
I'll send a copy.
But that's not even here or there. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're in favor of the deal and you just want some information as a matter of catching up to what we've already been privy to, then I don't see any reason why the information shouldn't be provided you. I think in order to get a better understanding what it is that we're trying to do, I think it would help that if we have questions and they're able to be answered, then we answer them as full as we possibly can at the particular time, and provide the necessary documentation at that particular time. So on a go-forward basis, we don't have to have any protracted conversation about it, and we can kind of keep things to a level of understanding. I'm trying to be a diplomat now, and I'm leaning. Y'all,
it's not going to work today.
Okay, well,
That's
I'm
okay.
done.
Trustee Mullins, you were next.
This conversation took place last Thursday at Committee of the Whole, and we got this agenda item, and I specifically remember asking the same question: what are the numbers? And I'm looking through here. Do we have the numbers listed, the percentage of what the bond counsel will cost? Just yes or no? No, we don't. So I agree. We did not get numbers, and I understand that it fluctuates because it depends on the bond. But we discussed it, and Dr. Tyler gave us the percentage, sort of a range. I said, if you can't give me a dollar amount, give me a percentage. Give me a range, because we need to have an understanding of this. So on the agenda items, all I ask, and I've said this before, is we need the numbers. I mean, we need them. And we asked last week at Committee of the Whole, because it goes through Committee of the Whole, and here we are voting on it, and we still don't have that. And I'm for it too. We need the bond counsel. I got it. But we need to have an understanding of where those pennies are being spent. And I didn't get this piece of paper either. So thank you.
Okay, going back to Trustee Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm not going to go over this ground again. But let me just be clear. Art, you and Richard, and this synchronized crap is not going to be accepted when it comes to my reputation and competence. At the meeting, I asked about the financing, and Richard, you started talking about we always have bond counsel. That was great. I didn't care about that. My question was, how much would the cost be? I stood up and talked to two of Art's staff and went out in the hallway, and because nobody would give me the information until I went out in the hallway, and then I went and verified it. Now, maybe your recollection of the meeting is different from mine, and if it is, I apologize. But you can't sit at this table and song and dance this choreographed crap with Art when you sat in the Committee of the Whole, and your response to me condescendingly was, we always have bond counsel, and it had nothing to do with a question about cost. Now, I respect everybody around this table, but I'm not going to be talked down to, and it's not going to be a choreographed game of crap when it comes to finances. I'm going to respect everybody and treat them like they treat me, and I asked about the cost, and the reason why I asked about the cost, Art, is during your financial presentation, you made the representation that we have somewhere in the neighborhood of about $131 million that may be eligible for refinancing, and I asked a secondary question, Madam Chancellor, do we have a schedule and do we have some kind of benchmarks that we use in terms of financial triggers that determine when we refinance? And God, Richard, in your own Praise Myself highlights, you talked about that y'all approved before I got here a phase 2 facility plan that I assume is going to be underwritten by a bond. So if I took Art's comments of about 131 to 151, and that's what's in the document I gave you, and the historic numbers of 1 basis point to 1.5 basis point, and also, unless you are now saying y'all are not going to go to the voter with some kind of bond package, then you're talking about 650 to, if you look at all the numbers I've heard, somewhere in the neighborhood of $700 million. That doesn't include the Public Finance Corporation if they issue new debt or refinance. And I applied the numbers because I decided to do my homework. So I just find it unacceptable that you and Art are going to sit here now and say I'm a stupid ass that didn't listen to what happened at the Committee of the Whole. And that's unacceptable.